Our first speaker is Jerry Tran, who with family involvement started working with the Department of Mental Health as a struggling high school freshman. Through the continuum of supportive services offered through the department, Jerry has demonstrated great resilience and strength in his recovery journey to re-engage in the school community and system. He is now an honors student in the 12th grade at English High, where he was elected class president and was awarded a John and Abigail Adams Merit-Based Scholarship for College Studies. Jerry continues to work hard academically and strives to maintain a greater balance of school demands with health and self-care. Jerry?
Hello, good morning. Again, my name is Jerry Tran. I couldn't have imagined being in this position I currently am today, having achieved so much in a relatively short time frame. Until fairly recently, I was unable to picture a day in which I would be a leader in my school, participate in this drumline, list amongst its highest achieving, or be invited to speak at such an amazing event here today at this lovely morning. All of these can be attributed to the experiences I've gained over the last few years as I encountered very personal adversities and faced many difficult challenges. Allow me to share some insight into this journey I underwent before reaching my current standing. I was a typical middle school student, an enthusiastic and youthful individual, taking first steps into adolescence. For some time, I attended a small all-boys Jesuit school. It was very different from anything I had attended previously, for how forcefully it pressed its values of discipline and diligence into its students. It was very strict for its policies and held us accountable to fairly rigorous standards. As I was young and impressionate, these values were etched into my personality. For the most part, these traits remain with me today, but are only a slight shadow of the extremism expressed by a devout bully. I was always a good student, awaiting the instructor's reading before sitting at the desk, doing all my homework and help my classmates with theirs, taking the lead in weekly janitorial duties, demonstrating good sportsmanship during athletic games. I took every opportunity I could to display how devoted I was to the school's vision for students. This was the norm, which continued unimpeded for the most part. However, unfortunate events I wouldn't have predicted would soon occur. Shortly before I started my high school applications, the situation around me became increasingly hectic. Around this time, when the atmosphere at home suddenly evolved into the chaos that broke my family apart. I found myself facing extreme stress produced from juggling between my academics at school and my family issues at home. This became progressively harder to balance as I was slowly eaten away by my gradual decay of physical and mental health. Soon, unable to keep up with this build-up of my schoolwork and chronic sleep deprivation, I broke down. The core values my school had imbued into me still remained. Its values, along with its competitive nature, had created a construct from which only perfection would suffice. I couldn't accept myself for being anything less than absolute best, and often set unrealistically high standards, high personal goals, pushing myself to meet unrealistically high standards. For me, mediocrity meant absolute failure. Looking back at how far I've fallen, I was in complete and absolute anguish. These negative feelings only advanced farther as I transitioned into high school. At some point, I couldn't handle the bottle of anxiety any longer and was desperate for a way to escape reality, to forget my school responsibilities and cease the pain of knowing how much I let everyone down. I eventually decided that it would be best if I stopped going to school altogether and spent most of my time at school, at home, drowning in despair. Each and every day was one in which I questioned if it was worth seeing the next. This was obviously an unhealthy mindset to be in. A few years came and went, along with the occasional crisis, and I eventually saw myself being admitted to the Children's Community Support Collaborative, or the CCSC, for short-term stay. It wasn't my first time as a residential program, but this one was somehow different. Maybe it was their individualized support for each individual case, or the level of familiarity they attained with each separate client, or the relative freedom they allowed. As I look back, I now understand it was a platform from which I was able to improve. Of course, like every other support program, there existed several flaws in the system. That's phrasing it lightly. What I gained from it heavily affected the direction in which my life was headed. From where I once stood, I could not see myself completing a primary education, nor hold any long-term commitments. Overcoming these foreseeable challenges seemed like an insurmountable endeavor I wouldn't ever manage. If I didn't receive the supports I was given, this notion might have been true. Individual therapy allowed me to openly speak my mind, list out my concerns, and vent my distress. Family therapy helped mend damaged relationships, force communication between disagreeing members, and build a foundation for renewed mutual understanding. All support staff I met during my time there were really nice and had really good intentions. This environment was one which carried a sense of community and was conducive to a positive reinforcement. This support was the catalyst from which I was able to reach an eventual realization. To break my cycle of depression, I needed to take the initiative to push myself forward without being held back by previous failures. I couldn't continue to sulk in my depression, as I had been doing up to that point. It was instead time to regret my past, and stop regretting my past, and look toward the future. What I was going through indeed warranted despair and anger. However, I realized that stagnating only lead to nowhere. And I truly wished to shape my life how I envisioned it, I needed to take action and that pushed me towards the right direction. Little by little, I was able to expose myself to others despite my social anxiety. This was slow and a painful process, but in the end, I was able to make many friends I wouldn't have gained otherwise. One thing leads to another, and soon, I was again comfortable with the social aspect of school. This accomplishment was a signal which restored my hope for continuing my education and reopened many possibilities I thought were lost long ago. Not long afterward, I continually persisted in going to classes every day. That year, as well as the next, I was not only able to maintain a stable attendance record, but achieved perfect attendance. This re-established commitment that led me down a path that I placed comfortably to a place I comfortably reside today. I would take a brief moment to express that I have not overcome my depressive symptoms. While they aren't as strong as they once were in previous years, these feelings still very much are suffocating, an inconvenient obstacle that I must face on a daily basis. Depression isn't something that can be overcome easily. Although it may seem like emotions can fade away over time, they eventually come rushing back when you least expect it. I can attest to this from personal experience. I do not frown at this fact. This depression I face is equally a part of me as my own flesh and blood. I believe these strong emotions are something that must be learned from and adapted to. They are something that seed personal development and maturity. The key to success on this front is to continually push forward despite everything. Finding ways to confront difficult issues is a routine thing that humans naturally do. Depression should not be an exception to this. Now, as I brace myself for the next few years of my own life in college, I'll look back at how I matured, and how my experiences forged the individual you see before you now. I'm hopeful my personal growth continues positively in the future. And as I'm hopeful for myself, it is my hope that those who face similar situations from what I had these last few years will come to a similar realization and arrive at a standing from which they too can be proud of. Thank you.